Today, we look at the red and green flags that are contained in the finance bill that's before Parliament and also the budget estimates that are before Parliament. Ruth Kendagor is a head of research at the Institute of Public Finance. She is our guest here. Good morning, Ruth.
Good morning to you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We fix the nation one conversation at a time. Just like budget is a shilling at a time.
That's good.
Right?
Indeed, indeed.
Aha.
You're on a roll. Hey.
Janet has one word at a time.
No delegation, no delegation. The quote today is from a climate justice activist from Africa, from Uganda. She's called Vanessa Nakate. She's credited for being one of the foremost activists from the continent, younger ones, who put the climate justice fight at the forefront. And in a UN article that she wrote once, she said, you cannot, in the end, you know, we cannot eat coal and we cannot drink oil. We cannot eat coal and we cannot drink oil. You're still trying to do the math on that one?
Yeah.
Right. No, yeah, just saying that what we need is what is essential for human survival. We need to eat. We need to have access to food, access to the basic rights. Yeah. And while the fight is bigger, it comes down to those essentials. Do you agree?
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, all these reforms that we're looking at, it's about how it affects me as an individual and as a citizen. How am I able to take care of my housing, where I put my head? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food on the table? Do I have, can I move to work peacefully without being shot along the way? Can I take my kids to school, and a good school for that matter? Do I have to struggle really to get work done and earn money, and then struggle to even access the basic services? So ultimately, all these conversations around the budgets, around PFM reforms, around debt, around the finance bill, what matters most is, from a citizen perspective, is how does the shoe fit, and what does it mean for me as a citizen, whether I am a taxpayer or I do not have any income? What does it mean for me as a citizen? Indeed.
Wow, I love how you've intertwined it into the conversation on budgets. I think that's really smart. It's at such an individual level. You speak about these big policy reforms, but what does it mean for me? Because that's what people care about, you know. Because policy implementation should result in that, but sometimes it misses that bit of it. So it's a really good translation.
So let's start from the big picture then into the small picture. Okay, 4.3 billion trillion shillings is the budget. Cabinet has said reduce that to this and the other, but 4.3 trillion shillings, what does that mean to me?
Oh, it means you're going to pay for it somehow, one way or the other. See, the numbers and
I like that saying.
The numbers, when you start and say, just the same way we budget at our household, right? You want a car, you want a bigger house, you want to afford better clothing, better housing. You have all these ambitions, and that is what the BPS does for us. It gives us the ambitions in terms of the priorities and the numbers that we are looking at. Now the question then is, how do we finance these ambitions that we have? So we come now through the process of refining this, and we saw from the cabinet memo now coming down to these estimates, coming down from 4.3, now we are looking at around 4.2. We don't know whether this will change. Those are the dynamics that come in, just the same way you'd budget in your household. Where does the money come from? How much can you raise from your own resources? How much do you push yourself to be able to raise extra? So we are going to talk about debt and see how else then is government able to raise extra money beyond the tax measures that are already in place or the tax reforms that we anticipate. And the other thing that is critical, even when you talk about these budget numbers, the 4.3, there is the fact, the issue of the ambitions and how we are going to finance them, but also what are we financing with the 4.3? What are our priorities? Do these priorities speak to ordinary mwananchi? Do they speak to me? Do they speak to my clans people back in the village? How do we relate with these numbers that we see? Indeed.
It's a good place to start. When you think about our budgeting priorities, from what you've seen of the finance bill, what are the good priorities where we've put in a little bit more or are putting in a significant amount? And what are we didn't need to do that. We don't need a 2.3 billion shilling facelift for an office, for example? Just saying, just suggesting.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the key, starting from the basic understanding of what is the basic needs for human beings and citizens at large. We need housing, we need education, we need food, we need shelter. So we've seen sustained investments and reforms, not just investment, but even system reforms around the health system, which is a whole conversation on its own. We are seeing increased conversation trying to especially boost the industrial or the productive economy through the industry, through trade. And now that's something we need to monitor to see how that then translates to the revenue or to the money, the disposable income that citizens have. When we increase our investments in industry, increase our investments in production, in trade, does this impact really on the businesses that the ordinary Mwananchi runs?
Right.
And if it impacts on these businesses that the Mwananchi runs, do we feel that income in your pockets? So that is a conversation. We need to see the thread from the budget allocation to the actual income and disposable income and purchasing power of citizens.
Right.
That is the most critical component. That needs to be very clear. That picture needs to be clear for citizens to truly understand and appreciate the process.
When I hear industry, I think industry, big. But that also means employment. That means, long-term more tax revenue. It means, money going into the economy. Is that thread something that we'll be able to see in the near future, or it'll take a little bit long to show?
Theoretically, that is the intention. That when you invest in the productive sector, say industry, then we expect to see some growth in that industry. And ultimately, that growth then should also contribute to revenue growth, because as businesses grow, as they're able to perform better, then they should be able to pay their taxes better and contribute to national development. In practice, the situation is a little bit different. Businesses still feel that they are constrained. There's been quite some long conversation about businesses saying that they're feeling overwhelmed, especially with the tax regime, and it's becoming more and more difficult. But there are many dynamics, many moving pieces around, the translation between the budgets and the fiscal reforms and what actually happens in the business space. So there are issues that budget-facing things that need to be fixed and can be fixed with investments. There are issues that need broader system reforms to ensure that then businesses are able to produce, are able to benefit from the investments. For instance, when you invest, it's good to allocate that money, but also be strategic about where we're investing.
Right.
We talk about tax incentives as an investment, as an incentive to encourage businesses.
Right.
Are these incentives working? Who is the beneficiary of this incentive? Can we reform that process so that we have more of the ordinary Mwananchi businesses and SMEs benefiting from this incentive, so that then we have more income coming to the hands of the people?
It sounds to me like a lot of these will end up going into bigger industries, but not into MSMEs and small, very small enterprises, right?
There needs to be quite some reforms there.
Okay. What does that look like from a structural? Is it because, they're not big enough to invest in or to attract this government investment? Like, what's the why that it'll go into bigger industries and not MSMEs?
Not that they're not big enough. The biggest challenge we've had with the MSMEs is the nature of the business and how they operate. There's been quite some challenge, just the same way with the tax side. There's been quite some challenge in providing this technical support, if I may say so, or infrastructural support for MSMEs, especially those within the informal economy. So they are not able to benefit from the major incentives or the major drives that have been put in place. What these MSMEs, especially those in the small industries and the informal economies, what they require is a lot of oversight. The overhead investments to facilitate their businesses. They need simplified systems to make them both understand and be able to participate, not only in the budget process, but even in productive economy. Sometimes I wonder if we go to the Juakali sector, do they really understand what needs to be done? We are looking at these reforms on VAT. Do the Juakali industry, are they able to really relate the reforms to what they do on their, when they wake up in the morning, open your biashara, your kibandaski, and you're doing your welding. Are you able to relate what you're doing with the ultimate end of what you need to do in terms of business? We talk about AGPO, and we have women back in the village registering businesses, entities. Are they able to relate what they are doing in terms of, you know, registering these companies and applying for these bids with the VAT reforms? And maybe that's what some of the things that we need to look at. There needs to be a lot of investment in civic education for people to understand these processes and make them interconnected, so that way they're able to see the value of what they're paying for and what they're investing in.
Yeah.
Should it bother me about all those reforms if I'm running a business? Say I'm running a furniture business. Okay, I've got fundis. I have a place where I buy the timber from. I have fundis here. I have a workshop. I have a market. I'm supplying. Kina Janet are coming and buying furniture from me because it's good quality to match Janet and elsewhere. Should it really matter to me about all these tax reforms, VAT reform, this income tax reform, the other? Should it matter to me?
Definitely it should.
Should it really?
Yes, it should.
Okay, how?
Because you're supposed to comply. You're expected to comply. And there are consequences for not complying. Now, how will you know what you're expected to do to ensure that you comply if you do not pay attention to the processes and the changes that are happening in the processes? A simple example, let me give a discussion that I had some not so recent, some years back, about women's group. There was a drive for women to register. You know, we were trying to promote, there was some activities towards promoting women to register for the AGPO license certification, so that they're able to get their permits and be able to tender and get businesses. Now, the women did the first year. They did apply and got the certifications, and they applied for the tenders, and they got the tenders, small and big, in whatever sizes they came in, they got their tenders. But because they did not keep tab with the changes in the processes, that initiative really didn't see the light of the intended results. What happened? They registered the first year, got their businesses and their tenders, did not follow the business processes in terms of complying with returns, complying with VAT payments, complying with their taxes and such. And so come the following year, they don't have tax compliance certificates.
So they're out.
They're out of business.
That's my point, exactly. That it is for the government to think far and wide.
Yes.
And to streamline its own operations and make it as seamless and easy as possible for me to run my business without having to worry about the compliance. If there's a compliance issue, then they make it as seamless from
as possible.
A, you're moving me to B. Just tell me, press B.
That's it.
I don't have to be taught how to move from, because I have to go to B, I must do Z minus Y plus 2/5, then I'll get my answer as B.
Indeed.
See, that's the point.
Indeed.
And all that is a cost. It's a cost to my business, it's a cost for government, because now you're saying we need civic education. So what's a better way that the government should do this, so that you can keep iterating your policies, but make it as smooth and seamless as possible?
I mean, that is the case. And I'm looking forward to when we start talking about the finance bill and what we expect. And one of the issues that, I was just reflecting on as I was coming here is the frameworks for participation. That I think, in my view, and I could be wrong, but in my view, I think that is one of the areas where we see exactly what you're saying. Systems becoming more bureaucratic and bringing in more complications as opposed to making the processes easier. As a way of streamlining public participation, with the many dynamics and issues we've had with public participation systems, there was a public participation bill that was supposed to provide frameworks in how, guiding how public participation should be conducted so that it is more meaningful. And these issues citizens have raised, for example, like feedback after participation, should be captured in.
Right.
But what did the proposed law say? That you need to have a pre-assessment for public participation, and then plan for that public participation, and then now do the participation, provide feedback, and then do a closeout report.
Wow.
You plan you have a meeting to plan for a meeting.
Yes.
Why not just say, Period. Participation is going to be done this way. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
This process of having a plan to prepare for a plan so that the plan is actualized and then report on the plan really is just making it more bureaucratic.
And I think sometimes
we're missing the part.
Yeah, I think sometimes, Ruth, it's almost intentional. I don't know whether they know it or they don't know it, but that element of wearing you down and trying to make it inaccessible is an issue. I know at some point we're going to hear from Kenyans their own thoughts and views. We're also going to be running some graphics. I don't know whether it'll highlight some of the key fiscal highlights, etc. But even as I'm listening to the conversation, I'm just wondering how we can address the negative aspects without undermining the positive aspects. Because I think the reflex is that it's negative, right? We saw the backlash that ensued last year. But when it comes to this particular finance bill, I'm wondering whether there's a way we can speak to the negative highlights, address them while not undermining the positive highlights, which could be, I don't know, you'll tell us, offering some reprieve in certain sectors or for certain people.
I think one of the key steps to helping us get there is mutual responsibility. Everyone has a responsibility. Government has a responsibility to its citizens. Make the process simple, clear, and understandable. Make it predictable. From a citizen perspective, we need to be very wary of the credibility, be intentional about wanting to understand and participate. And intentionality comes very strongly with the need for credibility of the information that we rely on. Yeah. One of the biggest challenges we've had, particularly reflecting on what happened last year, is the issue of misinformation and disinformation. And for as long as we have that persisting in the system, the challenges will we will still have a lot of this tug of wars coming in. So from government side, there is the need to make the systems simple, consistent, predictable. From a citizen perspective, we need to be intentional in getting the right information so that then we are able to appreciate the wins or the gains or the greens, the progress that we are seeing in terms of reforms, but also be able to flag off what we feel is not working for us as citizens.
Right. Speaking of the information, we went out into the streets to just basically get a feel of whether people have read the bill, have heard about it, know anything about it. Maybe a bit too soon to have read the entire bill, but at least what do you know about the Finance Bill 2025-2026? Here's what you had to say.
Majina nito Julius, nafanya kazi hapa kwa ni shop electronics. You can see it's all about electronics. But for now, nimesikia hiyo finance bill, but sijaenda through nione what is it. But the former finance bill was tough. Sasa ukiangalia, we witnessed few customers through the day, and business iko low. But we hope for the best. Kama your finance bill itakuwa iko na more perfection than the former, we will appreciate. But sahi mambo si vile sana. Yeah.
Okay, finance bill nimeisikia kwa radio, sijaisoma. Sasa biashara iko chini, tunajikaza tu, hata tukinunua vitu ni kupambana naye, lakini kupitia kwa uwezo wa Mungu unapata, lakini unapata vitu mingi ni zile zinakaa.
About finance bill, nilikuwa naona tu demonstrations za watu last year kutoka June hapo. Actually, yeah. Kwa yenyewe nilikuwa na vitu zilikuwa zinafinyilia watu of which we sikuwa tamkuatilia, and at this time hata sijui if there is anything that has ever changed since it was rejected. Yeah, I cannot really tell. So about biashara, siwezi sema that hii biashara iko sawa sana, hata kama ni ya madawa na watu wanakuanga wagonjwa, because sometimes mtu anaweza kuja akiwa mgonjwa, anakuambia vile anasikia, unamwambia umuone as a daktari, but yeye anataka dawa over the counter sababu hata consultation fee ni shida. Anasikia akisema that hiyo pesa ni mingi, so biashara si nzuri vile. I cannot see because I can see from the patient themselves.
Interesting mix of feedback. but still speaking to, I hope it's going to work for Kenyans, but me where I am, I just need my business to be doing better.
That's exactly it.
The second gentleman saying, I heard it from radio, it's just making it accessible on different channels and platforms for people to understand. But I do think the trickle down never quite lands.
Agreed.
From what the fiscal highlights are, the red flags, the green flags, people are like, I just want to run a successful business. Y'all come and tell me how that bill translates to me doing that. So there's still a sense of a disconnect.
Right?
Yeah.
And the last fixer I want to call her said, in a space where you would think things are guaranteed, like healthcare, you know, it's a fact of life. People will be unwell, you'll sell them medicine. Even there, they're still feeling the pinch. And even sadder is that people are asking for more and more over-the-counter medication because, consultation fee ni mob. And it's just like, I hope this works. I hope what the pharmacist gives me works. Fingers crossed. That's the state of our healthcare right now.
Betting on my life. Do you have any reactions to sort of what you've heard the citizens say?
I think the first thing that comes into my mind when I hear, the different reactions from citizens is, you pick one thing in common. For citizens, we are left to interpret and understand this in how we know best. So everyone has their own understanding. This one heard from the radio. The other one has not even followed from the demonstrations from last year. The other one, all they know is business is not working and it needs to work. So two perspectives. Number one, it is left to our understanding. And we have different technical capabilities. I mean, even the experts themselves will interpret it differently. So I would have wished for a scenario where there is intentional repackaging of the finance bill, technical document as it is, because, I mean, naturally, it's supposed to be technical, right? If it was repackaged in a way that citizens can genuinely and simply understand what it means, and especially seeing this drive, because what we've seen is a lot of public interest conversations. It's either media, it's either non-state actors, activist groups doing the interpretation. You can imagine how nice and efficient it would be if government itself was repackaging this information to make it palatable or understandable by the ordinary mwananchi. That would be a first step to addressing misinformation and disinformation. And, I'm not being a pushback, but I'm just, looking at even the conversations and the anticipations that people have. It was only on Wednesday last week that, the Speaker acknowledged that the finance bill and the budget estimates have been received at the floor of the House. They will be tabled probably in the coming week because after that they went on recess. And we have seen different versions of the document circulating. There's the one that's already been done on the Kenya Gazette, standardization and stuff. There's the other one that is just typed and in PDF. Is any of this document on the Treasury website?
None.
Is any of this on the Parliament website?
Still not up to today.
What
Still
does
not
that
on
mean?
Treasury.
As of last night, unless it came in this morning, as of last night, I didn't see it in the Kenya Gazette. I didn't see it in Treasury. I didn't see it on Parliament. There's the acknowledgement that has been tabled.
Yeah.
So these versions that are circulating,
wow.
We just need, I'm not saying they're wrong. I don't know where they came from. We only hope that they're legit.
The only thing is that you're hoping that it has come from a source in Parliament or a source in the National Treasury. But even then, it still even doesn't have the stamp of the National Parliament.
On the Treasury website, it's just the budget policy statement.
We are discussing this. For me, I would classify them as documents that are circulating because where I stand, I have not seen the formal one that is stamped or that has come through the Gazette. So these other ones, I will refer them as documents that are circulating until the day we have it properly, publicly made available, either through Treasury, through the Parliament, through the Kenya Gazette, something like that.
Okay. So we're only operating on the word of the Speaker that I have received this thing. Okay? And he said,
and we trust that because the system requires
on the
it 30th. To be.
So is it possible that the Speaker was just saying this just to show that the deadline for the 30th of April has been met?
Yeah.
But in truth, it hasn't.
But we can,
because just the previous day on Tuesday, the Cabinet had directed the National Treasury to review. Maybe it's some illegality. It's a point to think about anyway. Ruth Kendagor is the head of research at the Institute of Public Finance. She's our guest this morning, breaking down for us what we are seeing on social media as the finance bill and the budget estimates. We'll be back in a moment. utaifanya hivyo.
We can
I
sample
have taken
some.
the number.
Yeah, we can
Yes.
sample some feedback
What are the fixers saying?
as we get back into the conversation. Rahem Tula Omar, do we really need a 4 trillion shilling budget that will struggle to raise with taxes and borrow the remainder? The government should live within its means. Bernard Atuya, how are we going to sustain projects that were funded by USAID? I think Warren Buffett is trying to work on it, but we'll come back to that. Elizabeth Chepkoech, Ruth Kendagor, brilliantly done. You are breaking down complex issues with clarity and confidence. We had somebody else here, Paul Maina aka Staki Mapepe. Good morning, Mariam, Janet, and Eric. Jinsi Mudavadi anavyoongea ni kama hawajui wakazi wa Mlima Kenya. Bora hali zao ziko sawa, hawaweki wanasiasa wako kwa pani na wanaweza kuwatema wakati wowote. Sawa sawa. Hataki mapepe. Agre Momanyi says hamjambo. Mariam, quote in Swahili ni nukuu.
Nukuu. Sawa basi. Utanipata nikisema quote tena nikisoma Taifa Leo. Tunasema nukuu. Asante sana Agre. My favorite uncle's name is Agre, so.
You umeshika.
Umeshika.
Very good. We're talking about the finance bill, and so yeah, by this morning, the National Treasury website has just the budget estimates, which is the budget line of how the 4.3 trillion shillings is going to be spent. The finance bill of how they raise the money, or whether there's any, new measures of raising money, has not yet been uploaded on that website, nor on the Parliament's website. But the Speaker of the National Assembly last week spoke to Parliament and said, I have received it. And he challenged members to read it. Now, we need to hear where he was telling the members to read it from, so we can go and read it from there. But anyway, there are some documents that are circulating, Ruth, all over. Now, from what you've seen, are there some good things in the finance bill of this year?
I'd say yes. There's still room for more improvement, but yes, there are a few good things or the green lights that we are seeing from the finance bill, both from a Mwananchi perspective, but even from an expert based on some of the research insights that we've been developing. Allow me to delve into some of them, and I'll start with what speaks into some research piece that IPF we've been working on for about 2 years now. In the documents that are circulating, we've seen quite some cleanup on the VAT exemptions, and there's a cleanup on the VAT processes and how they work. So just to unpack it for all of us to be on the same understanding, we have commodities that are vatable, that are subject to the 16% VAT. We have commodities that are zero rated. Meaning that they're not, when your others are paying 16% VAT, this one's paying 0% VAT. Then we have commodities that are exempt. They're exempted from the VAT requirements. Now, with these VAT applications, what happens is that we have what we call tax expenditures, basically revenue that is foregone because of allowing zero rating or allowing exemption, because it means then that the 16% VAT is not paid on those commodities that are either zero rated or that are exempt. There's some component of VAT that is foregone, VAT revenue that is foregone. Now, our VAT revenue has been increasing. At one point we were at 400 billion, now we went to 500 billion. So with government looking at, trying to minimize, because the cabinet memo talked about minimizing tax increasing measures on the ordinary Mwananchi, then one of the ways is to close or, reduce the loops in terms of revenue leakages, and I say leakages quote unquote, because tax expenditures they are a form of leakage, yes, but they've been justified before. So one of the mechanisms then to ring fence resource, ensure that the resource basket then is enriched without really pinching the citizens, is to address the issue on VAT. So we've seen quite some reforms for commodities that were previously zero rated, now being made vatable, meaning that they will be paying that 16% VAT.
What is zero rating?
Zero rating means that the commodities at the point of sale, and they pay, you see how you compete 16%, if you're buying, say, a handkerchief, the handkerchief is 100 shillings at the producer price. Then there's a 16% VAT component. So you'll buy it at 116 shillings.
Yes.
So that the 16 shillings on top is VAT that is going to be remitted to government. Zero rating means that the applicable rate is 0%. So, there's 0% on your 100, then it remains still the 100.
Okay.
So there's that foregone revenue of the 16 shillings from the zero rating.
Okay.
Now, what happens with the
So
zero
who's
rating
foregoing here
commodities?
is the government is the one that's
The government is
foregoing the
foregoing.
opportunity to earn the
Yes.
16 bob.
In producing this handkerchief that is valued at 100 shillings, there were inputs that were purchased.
Yes.
These inputs had some level of VAT at
Yes.
that purchase point.
Yes.
Whoever was buying the raw materials bought the fabric or the equipment with some 16%. So what the
Including
producer
power.
will do, exactly.
Okay.
What the producer will do is that they will claim the 16% incurred at the input level. So you bought inputs that had been subjected to 16%. They will claim that. But they're not able, they don't then transfer another 16% to the citizens at the purchase. So the input cost will now be claimed through the tax processes, for instance, through the what is payable when you compute your total VAT amount. What you pay from business A, from business B, or product ABC, you reduce what you'd have paid from the input tax. Exempt means that you collect you pay the input tax on the commodities you purchase, but you do not impose 16% tax on the commodities that you're selling.
Okay.
So you find that commodities that are commonly zero rated are things like food commodities, maybe the essential commodities that we want to make them affordable and accessible to citizens. Commodities that are vatable, items like electronics, clothes, those ones have the 16% properly on them. These are the commodities that are exempt. What example can I pick on the exempt commodities? Anyway, we'll pick them as we go on. So that's the difference between zero rating, exempt, and vatable.
Okay.
So what we've seen is quite some cleanup on this on these exemptions, if I may call them so, whether zero rating, exempt, or vatable. We have now more commodities being properly aligned, being vatable, meaning that we are reducing the foregone revenue and increasing what is actually collected.
Okay.
That is good in terms of the revenue basket.
Does it make it more expensive for the consumer?
Kind of makes it more expensive, because then if some of commodities that were zero rated are now paying the 16%, then it means your price goes up by that 16%. Yeah.
So goods are becoming more expensive as the government is seeking to raise more.
In the process of addressing this.
Okay.
But the key argument, the key argument here, a green flag in the sense that research has shown, we've been questioning who benefits from these tax incentives.
Okay.
From a theoretical perspective, tax incentives are given to either promote, make commodities accessible by ordinary mwananchi. They could also be given to promote or encourage, people to invest or to produce certain commodities. The bigger question has been on these tax incentives that are directed towards, say, production. You're targeting, you want people to invest more in a certain industry or in a certain sector, so you give a lot of incentives there so that people go and invest. The question has been is who are the beneficiaries of those investments, of those incentives, number one. Number two, if you track down the price mechanisms, even with these incentives, do citizens really feel that benefit in terms of price as a result of the incentives that have been given? Number three, if you are to do a deeper analysis, are these incentives the only way to attract? Do we have to forego 500 billion from our revenue, enough to finance two whole sectors for us to encourage investments in a particular industry? If you look at the ease of doing business, investors have spoken in different forums and research. A number of papers have actually published and shown that the tax incentives, fine, they look at it and they consider it, but it is not the key determinant for me as a business person, as an investor, to go to a particular industry. I will look at broader issues within the ease of doing business, so many other things, and the tax is just part of it. So why we give it a green flag is, if we can bring in this 500 billion, that is enough to finance sectors, it's enough to finance these huge sectors, and find other ways to attract investments and get investments, lure investors by providing other mechanisms that speak more directly to their investment needs. Then we will have served both purposes. We will have gotten this extra income, but also looked at this.
but we'll also have taken the price of some of these goods up a little bit, because I do hear your point about, is that the best way to attract investment, for going quite a bit in tax revenue when we're trying to raise more? But manufacturers, industries, they will all pass that cost on to the consumer at the end of the day. So as much as we were not feeling the impact of this VAT exemption, we will feel the impact of the shift
on the price commodity.
Yeah.
But there are other ways of bringing down the cost of production, apart from the tax incentives, apart from bringing on the VAT. And one of the ways of doing that is to make the production process cheaper. For instance, look at power issues. Is there a way that we can just address our power supply and our power pricing? Make it reasonable. Is it possible?
We've had this
look at other mechanisms, transport costs that producers incur. Are there ways we can address those transport costs so that the transport cost, I produce my commodity from Kilifi, I'm coming to sell it in Nairobi, my transport costs are minimized. That way I don't have to. There are other ways of bringing down the cost of commodities at the point of retail through lowering the production costs.
Right.
That should be the key argument.
So those are some of the green flags.
Yes.
That's one green flag.
That's one green
That is one green flag.
In VAT processes.
Yes.
Another one?
I don't know, I feel like it's
a medium.
It's a medium green flag.
It's a gray area.
Yeah?
It's a gray area. It's a gray flag.
It's a gray area.
Let's just call
There
it
is
amber.
some good in it,
Between
and
green
then there's
and red.
exactly.
It's amber.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly it.
Exactly. The other green area that I would point out is the personal income. So there's some changes that have been made to how you can claim your relief on your personal income on the construction for housing. So previously, when you take a loan, either to buy, construction was not among those that were subjected to the loan on construction. If you take a loan to construct your house, the interest on that loan was not a relief component. There was relief on houses that you buy, either through the mortgage system or such. But when you actually construct from zero, I decide I want to be a ninja. I'm going to construct my house from foundation to end. I don't want to buy a ready house. I don't want to go through the mortgage process for ready houses and such. When you take a loan for that, now the interest that you charge on your loan for construction is subject to relief. You can claim it as part of your relief. It has a cap of, I think, 360,000 from the document circulating, a cap of 360,000 per year.
As interest.
As interest.
So you go
not
to
the principal loan amount.
On the interest.
The interest
itself.
on the loan.
Okay.
With a cap of up to 360,000 per year. So
many people go to their SACCOs to take loans to build homes, right? And so, as an individual, how do I claim this? Because now, companies, we usually see companies. As an individual, I went to my SACCO, I took a loan, and I'm paying back the interest. I've built a house. How do I then claim this?
I think one of the best ways is when you're filing your tax returns at the end of the year.
Does that money ever come back? If we're being honest.
There's a whole process around the refund part.
Okay.
There's a whole story around the refund part.
Okay.
But
So
to that
the
question,
relief here would be that when I'm filing my tax returns, then there'd be a less tax to pay because
Yes.
I can offset it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Up to 360, let's say.
up to 360 max per year.
Okay. Okay.
The other green area, I think I had, at least I pointed out three. Of course, there are many others that can be debated, but for me, I pointed out three areas. The other green area that is notable, but this one I say there is room, or rather we expected more, or there is room for more, is with regard to the pay as you earn. So the proposal in the documents that we've seen is that the computation of the reliefs, you have the payee relief, you have the housing relief, you have all these reliefs that have been introduced, should now be summed, and the taxable income. Blame where I came from and the school I went to. The taxable income is computed after all these reliefs have been removed. If I'm earning 10,000, and I want to compute how much I'm going to what is my tax obligation. My reliefs from payee, from all these affordable housing and everything is coming to 2,000. So I will add relief 1, relief 2, relief 3, come get my 2,000, deduct, then compute my taxable, my tax due from the remaining 8,000. Previously, the employers had different ways of doing it. So there were different styles and different ways of doing it, but now this has been clearly harmonized.
Why were there different ways of doing it?
For reasons I may not be able to explain, because I mean it was, I don't know if it was whether
it was an interpretation issue.
It could be an interpretation issue, could be an implementation issue. But at least now, with that being made clear, then this is properly addressed. That from your 10,000, calculate all your reliefs, put it aside, get the balance, compute your tax burden.
Ruth, what's relief? Because you were saying, yeah, you relief.
We need to understand what.
What is relief?
Relief.
So chukua payslip ndio hii hapa. Pap. Okay?
Yes.
Iko na 25,000.
Okay.
We start paying pay at 20?
At 25, you're right, yes.
Right?
At
Income?
Anything above 24,000.
24.
Okay.
So ndio hii iko na 25,000. That's my salary. Now let's start deducting NSSF, NHIF, housing levy. Which other levy?
All those ones.
All those levies. And there's pay.
So
At
let's
what
start
point?
this way.
If
If you're earning less than 24,000, 23,999.9 kurudi chini, you are not subject to the pay as you earn. Because the tax relief then comes to 24,000. So all your taxable amount is, the relief is some waiver sort of that you're given on what you are supposed to pay. So if you're supposed to pay 10,000 and your relief is 2,000, the waiver you've been given is 2,000, some sort of a discount, if I may call it so, to make it understandable, then you pay the balance over and above the relief.
Okay.
So if your taxable amount is anything less than 24,000, then you don't pay the pay as you earn, because your relief is the relief that you're entitled to
is more than
your taxable income.
Okay.
Anything above 24,000 and above is subject now to you start computing the pay, and we have the tax band starting from, I think starts from, is it 10%? We have the 10, 15, 25 or 10, 25, 32. I know there's been a lot of discussion around the tax band for the 30 group. That is where we've had a lot of conversation. Then now there's the group of 32 and 35% that have also raised concerns that were recently introduced.
We have a few minutes. I know we haven't gotten to the red flag. I just want to see another green flag. This carrier extending the refund to 120 days.
Is that a green?
Is that a green or?
It's not green or red or amber.
Is that a green or a red?
We didn't get the relief bit. I wanted to know how that relief works.
What is relief?
So 25K is my gross.
Is your gross pay.
How do we work from there?
25K is your gross pay.
Yes.
So you have you have affordable housing that you're paying. You have all these components that you're paying. You calculate that the relief that is due. So for example, affordable housing is it at 1.5%
of your salary?
Yes.
Yes.
So whatever relief you're supposed to get from pay, according to the lowest, now you'll be subjected to the lower income bracket, so the lower band for the tax rate, the pay you're getting from affordable housing and any other. Compute all this. If your income now, after computing all that, now with the new law, still comes to less than 23.999, then you get that full relief for pay. But you're going to pay now. I think you still have to pay for
pay, or no?
No, actually, because your relief for shift. Your relief for affordable housing.
There's a likelihood of you coming
of
down.
you coming down.
So if you go to 30, maybe now that's where they.
Yes.
Okay, that's when.
But the relief is all those.
Discounts, quote unquote, that are given. Now, the catch, or what citizens, including myself, have been following keenly to see if this will come. If you remember the medium-term revenue strategy that was published in 2023 or 2024, it had given a number of revenue reforms that were to be implemented over a 3-year period. One of them was the revision of the tax bands. And the critical issue that I know citizens have been following when it comes to the tax band is this bracket of where we have citizens earning between 32,000 up to 467,000 being on this same tax rate. So the anticipation has been that with the revision of the tax band, there's going to be introduction of new tax bands here in between, so that there's some enhanced equity. The person who is earning 32,000, and when you calculate the tax bands up to that point, and the person who is earning 450,000 really should not be at the same rate. There needs to be some additional tax bands added in here so that it enhances. I know we've talked about progressivity and equity of the tax bands, but that is what citizens would really love to see.
Right.
We have a minute. Just the reddest red flag.
The reddest red flag.
I think the one that probably pinches most, as she has mentioned, is the one for the time period for processing the refunds and the applications that have been made. The time period has been extended from 90 to 120 days. From 120 to 180 days if it requires an audit. What does this mean? If you had a process that you put in an application for some refund or for some, there's something you're following up with KRA about a tax claim that was due. Previously, there was a timeline that this had to be sorted and processed and refunded within 90 days. Now we are saying 120 days. So it's giving KRA additional time to process this. Perhaps it was an administrative side that they needed more time to process and examine this paperwork and determine whether you're actually due for the refund or not. However, from the perspective of the ordinary person, if you are waiting for this money to go pay fees for your child, then instead of waiting for 90 days, 3 months, you're going to have to wait now for
4 months.
Up to 4 months. Of course, it doesn't mean that they should be sorted on the 4th month. If you're lucky enough, it would be sorted earlier, depending on how fast they finish. But the window generally, the timeline has been extended from 90 to 120 days.
So it's a cost, because now that's my money sitting in
That's your money sitting there.
and it should be helping me
Had you taken it
to
and put it in a fixed investment somewhere, for that 30 days, you'd have had some income.
There's the data protection question as well, allowing
Yes,
KRA.
there's the data protection.
Sorry, Phil, just give her 1 minute. Go.
There's the data protection. This was in the 2024 finance bill, and there was quite some discussion around it on whether, with citizens really saying that we are infringing on our privacy, and which was assured or enshrined in the Data Protection Act. But now what we are seeing is that KRA is seeking to be permitted to access 2 kinds of data. One, trade secrets from between businesses, and secondly, private and personal data on behalf of customers.
Well,
when we say on behalf of customers, that's me and you and every other generally Mwananchi. Trade secrets can be the big organizations. I'm not sure how that works.
So
but when you talk about personal data,
so
there are two areas that are being proposed in terms of KRA accessing data. Now, the first one is trade secrets. The second one is personal information, or that is held
on behalf of customers.
On behalf of customers.
So they go to bank and they can take.
They will get your bank, they will get your M-Pesa, they will get what they need to get.
You're red.
That is
you will come.
We need to see when the proper document is now properly out. We need to examine properly what that
exactly
means.
What it's
understand clearly what it means,
and if it goes against our data protection
submissions on that.
Right.
Yep.
Ruth Kendagor, head of research at the Institute of Public Finance, has been educating us on small bits of the finance bill, which is not available on the website of Parliament or the National Treasury. That's a question that we need to be asking. But between now and next month, it'll be there, and we'll be having more and more of these conversations. Keep it here for more coming up in the next hour. It's 8 a.m.